86-hour gaming marathon collapse. On October 23, 2002, in a crowded internet cafe in Gwangju, South Korea, a 24-year-old man's gaming session ended in tragedy. Kim had been a regular at the establishment, known for his dedication to the medieval fantasy game Mu. What set this particular session apart was its duration, 86 hours of the nearly continuous play. The internet cafe culture in South Korea had exploded in popularity, with thousands of these PC bangs operating around the clock. They offered high-speed internet, comfortable chairs, and an escape into virtual worlds. Kim had arrived on Sunday evening with the intention of playing through the night. That night stretched into days. Surveillance footage later revealed that over the course of the 86 hours, Kim left his seat only for brief bathroom breaks and to smoke cigarettes just outside the entrance. He consumed energy drinks and instant noodles brought by cafe staff. Sleep came only in short bursts, his head occasionally dropping to his chest before he would jerk awake and continue playing. By the third day, witnesses reported that Kim's appearance had deteriorated noticeably. His face was pale and drawn, dark circles had formed under his bloodshot eyes. His hands trembled slightly as he controlled his character on screen. Other patrons noticed his labored breathing but assumed it was just fatigue from his extended session. At approximately 2 p.m. on Wednesday, after nearly 4 days without proper rest, Kim's body began to show signs of extreme distress. His breathing became increasingly shallow. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He complained briefly of chest pains to a nearby player but continued gaming. 20 minutes later, Kim suddenly slumped forward in his chair. His hands dropped from the keyboard. His head hit the desk with enough force to alert those sitting nearby. Cafe staff rushed over and immediately called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within minutes to find Kim unresponsive. Despite immediate CPR and emergency transport to the nearest hospital, the damage was too severe. Kim's heart, pushed beyond its limits by the combination of sleep deprivation, physical inactivity, dehydration, and constant stress, had simply given out. At 3:47 p.m., doctors pronounced Kim dead from cardiac failure. Medical experts later explained that the continuous stress had triggered a fatal arrhythmia. His heart's electrical system had essentially short-circuited after days of abnormal strain. Fatal blood clot. On May 19, 2011, in Sheffield, United Kingdom, a 20-year-old man collapsed suddenly while waiting for a job interview. Staniforth was known among friends for his passion for gaming, particularly the science fiction game Halo, which had consumed increasing amounts of his time in recent months. His gaming sessions had grown longer and more intense. What began as casual evening play had evolved into 12-hour marathons, often stretching from early evening until dawn. During these sessions, Staniforth would remain almost completely stationary, his legs tucked beneath him on his chair, fingers rapidly working the controller. The human body isn't designed for such prolonged immobility. Inside Staniforth's leg, a silent danger was developing. In the deep veins of his left calf, blood began to stagnate and clot, a condition known medically as deep vein thrombosis. The clot grew larger with each extended gaming session, each hour of compressed vessels and restricted circulation. On the morning of May 19th, Staniforth left his house feeling normal. He had been gaming until 4 o'clock a.m., but felt ready for his upcoming job interview. As he stood at a bus stop near the Job Center Plus office, he suddenly experienced a sharp pain in his chest. Within seconds, breathing became difficult. He felt lightheaded and nauseated. What Staniforth couldn't know was that the clot had dislodged from his leg and traveled through his bloodstream. It had now reached his lungs, blocking the pulmonary artery, a condition called pulmonary embolism. His oxygen levels plummeted immediately. His heart began to race, trying desperately to compensate. Witnesses saw him clutch his chest and collapse to the pavement. Emergency services were called, and paramedics arrived within minutes. They found Staniforth unresponsive, his lips blue, his pulse weak and erratic. Despite immediate CPR and emergency transport to the hospital, the damage was catastrophic and irreversible. Medical staff later explained to his family that the clot had completely blocked blood flow to his lungs. His heart, suddenly forced to pump against an immovable obstruction, had been strained beyond its capacity. Despite the doctor's desperate efforts, Chris Staniforth was pronounced dead at 11:47 a.m., a victim of what would later be termed e-thrombosis, a blood clot directly linked to his extended periods of immobility during gaming. 3-day gaming binge. On January 1st, 2015, as the world celebrated the arrival of a new year, a 38-year-old man sat alone in an internet cafe in New Taipei City. The establishment was open 24 hours, catering to those seeking escape in digital worlds regardless of time. For 5 consecutive days, Chu had been fixed to his seat, eyes locked on the screen before him. The cafe was typical of those found across Taiwan. Rows of computers separated by dividers, offering a semblance of privacy in a public space. Staff members had grown accustomed to Chu's presence. He had become a fixture, barely leaving his station for nearly 120 continuous hours. Security footage later reviewed showed he stood only for brief bathroom breaks. Throughout his 5-day session, Chu consumed little more than instant noodles and energy drinks brought by cafe employees. Sleep came only in short bursts, his head occasionally dropping to his chest before jerking awake to continue playing. Witnesses reported he spoke to no one, communicating only through in-game chat with strangers online. By the 5th day, Chu's appearance had deteriorated noticeably. His eyes were sunken and red from strain. His movements had become sluggish and uncoordinated. Several patrons later told police they had noticed his labored breathing, but assumed he was simply tired from his extended session. At approximately 10 o'clock a.m., a cafe attendant approached Chu to check if he wanted another drink. When she received no response, she gently tapped his shoulder. Chu remained motionless, slumped forward in his chair. His hands were still positioned over the keyboard, fingers curled as if ready to continue playing. Emergency services arrived within minutes, but medical personnel immediately recognized the signs. Chu's body was already cool to the touch. His skin had taken on a waxy pallor. The prolonged sitting position had likely caused blood to pool in his lower extremities, triggering a fatal clot. The autopsy confirmed that Chu had suffered a cardiac arrest caused by extreme physical exhaustion. The combination of sleep deprivation, poor nutrition, dehydration, and prolonged immobility had created a perfect storm within his body. His heart had simply stopped. Teen dies during challenge. On August 21, 2020, as social media trends swept across teenage communities nationwide, a girl in Oklahoma City made a fatal decision in her bathroom. Phillips was a typical teenager, active on TikTok, concerned with likes and follows, eager to participate in viral challenges that might boost her online presence. That evening, she discovered videos featuring the Benadryl challenge, a dangerous trend encouraging users to consume excessive amounts of the over-the-counter allergy medication to induce hallucinations. The standard dosage for adults is 25 to 50 milligrams. The challenge promoted taking many times that amount. Using Benadryl purchased from a local pharmacy, Phillips consumed an estimated 12 to 14 tablets, approximately 300 milligrams of diphenhydramine hydrochloride. Within 30 minutes, the first effects began. Her heart rate accelerated dramatically. Her mouth became extremely dry. Her vision blurred as her pupils dilated. These initial symptoms were merely the beginning. As the drug flooded her system, more severe effects took hold. Her body temperature rose dangerously. Her heartbeat became erratic. The hallucinations she sought arrived, but alongside them came confusion and panic. Around 11 p.m., Phillips' breathing grew labored. Her body began to shake with tremors. She attempted to reach her bedroom but collapsed in the hallway. Family members heard the fall and rushed to find her convulsing on the floor, unable to speak coherently. Emergency services were called immediately. Paramedics arrived to find Phillips in full cardiac distress. Her heart rhythm had become dangerously irregular, a condition known as diphenhydramine-induced arrhythmia. They administered emergency treatment on scene and during transport to the hospital. In the emergency room, medical staff worked frantically to stabilize her. The toxic levels of diphenhydramine had caused severe damage to her heart muscle. Despite aggressive intervention, including attempted cardiac resuscitation, the damage was too extensive. At 1:38 a.m., doctors were forced to acknowledge what the monitors already showed. Chloe Marie Phillips was pronounced dead, a victim not just of a drug overdose, but of a social media algorithm that had promoted and amplified a deadly challenge to impressionable teens. Fatal collapse. On August 5, 2005, in the bustling city of Daegu, South Korea, a 28-year-old man sat hunched over a computer in a dimly lit internet cafe. These establishments, known locally as PC bangs, had become cultural institutions where gamers could play for hours, often through the night. Lee had been playing the real-time strategy game StarCraft for nearly 50 hours straight. StarCraft wasn't just a game in South Korea, it was a national obsession, with professional leagues and television broadcasts. Lee wasn't a professional, but his dedication to the game had become all-consuming. He had barely moved from his seat for over 2 days, stopping only for brief bathroom breaks. Witnesses later reported that throughout his marathon session, Lee had consumed almost nothing but cigarettes and the occasional energy drink. Sleep deprivation was visible on his face, bloodshot eyes, pale skin, and increasingly erratic movements as he commanded his virtual troops across the screen. At approximately 3:15 a.m., after clicking furiously through another intense match, Lee's body began to show signs of severe distress. His breathing became labored, sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Fellow gamers noticed his condition worsening, but no one intervened. Such extended sessions were not uncommon. Suddenly, Lee slumped forward in his chair. At first, nearby players thought he had simply fallen asleep. It wasn't until he slid off his seat onto the floor that others realized something was seriously wrong. Cafe staff called emergency services immediately. When paramedics arrived, they found Lee still conscious but in critical condition. His pulse was rapid and irregular. His skin had taken on a bluish tint. They rushed him to the nearest hospital, working desperately to stabilize him during the journey. Medical staff later determined that Lee's heart had been pushed to its limits. The combination of exhaustion, dehydration, and stress had triggered fatal heart failure. Despite emergency intervention, his vital organs had been without proper circulation for too long. At 4:23 a.m., Seung-seop Lee was pronounced dead. Collapsed during fitness video game. On March 4, 2009, in the quiet coastal village of Hopton-on-Sea, United Kingdom, a 25-year-old man collapsed in his living room while playing a fitness game. Eves had recently returned from an overseas trip and was trying to shake off the lingering effects of jet lag through light exercise on his Nintendo Wii console. The Wii Fit had become popular as a way to combine video gaming with physical activity. Players would mimic sports motions while standing on a balance board, following prompts on their television screen. That evening, Eves had chosen a jogging program designed to simulate running through a virtual park. Just 2 days earlier, Eves had flown back from Thailand, a 12-hour flight that had left him fatigued but otherwise healthy. Friends described him as fit and active with no known health issues. He had mentioned feeling slightly tired but was eager to return to his normal routine after the long journey. At approximately 8:30 p.m., Eves began his virtual jog, running in place on the carpet of his living room. His girlfriend was in another room when she heard a sudden thump. She rushed in to find Eves collapsed on the floor, unconscious and unresponsive. She immediately called emergency services. When paramedics arrived minutes later, they found Eves in cardiac arrest. Despite their immediate efforts to resuscitate him, including defibrillation and CPR, there was no response. His heart had stopped completely. The medical examiner later determined that Eves had died from sudden arrhythmia death syndrome, a condition that causes the heart to develop a fatal rhythm without warning. The physical exertion of the game, combined with his recent long-haul flight, had likely triggered the deadly arrhythmia. SADS often remains undetected until it proves fatal. The electrical system controlling Eve's heartbeat had malfunctioned severely, causing the muscle to quiver uselessly instead of pumping blood. Within seconds, his brain was deprived of oxygen. Within minutes, death was inevitable. What made the tragedy particularly cruel was the context. Eves had been engaging in what was marketed as a healthy activity. The game designed to improve physical fitness had instead become the catalyst for a fatal cardiac event. At 9:11 p.m., despite continued resuscitation attempts, Tim Eves was pronounced dead at the scene. Death by Blackout challenge. On December 12, 2021, in a suburban home in Chester, Pennsylvania, a girl was found unconscious in her bedroom closet. Anderson had been a bright, sociable child who, like many of her generation, was active on social media platforms despite her young age. That afternoon, she had encountered one of the most dangerous trends circulating online, the Blackout challenge. The challenge, which had spread rapidly across TikTok and other platforms, encouraged participants to choke themselves until they lost consciousness. The goal was to experience the brief euphoric sensation that comes with oxygen deprivation to the brain. For many children, the dangerous nature of this activity wasn't fully understood. Alone in her bedroom, Anderson had decided to attempt the challenge. She had used a purse strap, hanging it from a clothes rack in her closet. The medical examiner would later determine that she had positioned herself in such a way that her body weight created pressure against her carotid arteries, the vessels that supply blood to the brain. Within seconds of applying pressure, Anderson would have experienced lightheadedness as blood flow to her brain decreased. Unlike many who attempt such challenges with friends present, there was no one to intervene, and she began to lose consciousness. As her oxygen levels plummeted, her brain began to shut down critical functions. At approximately 4:30 p.m., Anderson's mother entered the bedroom to check on her daughter. She discovered the child hanging unconscious in the closet. Immediately, she cut the strap and laid her daughter on the floor, beginning CPR while calling emergency services. Paramedics arrived within minutes to find the mother still attempting resuscitation. First responders took over life-saving efforts and rushed Anderson to Crozer-Chester Medical Center. In the emergency room, doctors found that her brain had been deprived of oxygen for a critical period. Despite aggressive intervention, including mechanical ventilation and medication to reduce brain swelling, the damage was devastating and irreversible. For 5 days, Anderson remained on life support while her family maintained a vigil at her bedside. Physicians performed multiple tests to determine brain activity, each confirming the same grim reality. On December 17th, with her family's consent, life support was withdrawn. Nyla Anderson was pronounced dead at 6:17 p.m., becoming one of at least 15 children who had died attempting this same challenge within a single year. The first Craigslist. On April 14, 2009, room 2010 at the Marriott Copley Place Hotel in Boston became a crime scene that would change how America viewed the internet forever. Julissa Brisman was a 25-year-old aspiring model and actress from New York City who had recently begun advertising massage services on Craigslist to help pay her bills during the economic recession. That evening, hotel staff received complaints about loud noises coming from the 20th floor. When security arrived at room 2010, they knocked but received no response. Using a master key, they entered to find a horrific scene. Brisman lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath her body. Her wrist showed signs of being bound with plastic zip ties. Her head had suffered severe trauma from being bludgeoned with a hard object. Most lethal were the 3 bullet wounds to her chest, fired at close range. The room showed signs of a violent struggle. Overturned furniture, broken glass, and blood spatter across the walls. Hotel security immediately called police, who sealed off the crime scene. Surveillance cameras had captured images of a tall, clean-cut young man entering the elevator with Brisman earlier that evening. The same man was later seen leaving alone, wearing latex gloves and carrying a gun-shaped bulge in his pocket. Detectives quickly connected this to another attack just 4 days earlier at a different Boston hotel, where a woman advertising escort services on Craigslist had been robbed at gunpoint, but managed to escape when her husband returned to the room. The surveillance footage was released to the public, and tips flooded in. 6 days after Brisman's murder, police arrested Philip Markoff, a 23-year-old Boston University medical student who had no prior criminal record. Investigators were stunned to discover this seemingly ordinary student was living a double life. In Markoff's apartment, police found the murder weapon, zip ties identical to those used on Brisman, and multiple pairs of women's underwear hidden in his mattress, each apparently taken as trophies from victims. The clean-cut medical student, who was engaged to be married, had methodically selected, bound, and executed Julissa Brisman, creating a new term that would send chills through internet users nationwide: the Craigslist Killer. Shvdal Sharma. On January 18, 2020, 67-year-old retired railway worker Shvdal Sharma was filming content for his small YouTube channel dedicated to rural Indian life. Having worked for the railways for 35 years, Sharma had developed a fascination with trains and frequently recorded videos near the tracks in Uttar Pradesh, despite the obvious dangers. That morning, Sharma positioned himself approximately 30 meters from the tracks near Mathura Junction. He was filming the arrival of the Delhi-Mumbai Express, which would pass through at approximately 110 kilometers per hour. His camera was set up on a tripod, and he stood behind it, narrating the approaching train for his 3,000 subscribers. At 10:47 a.m., the express train struck a cow that had wandered onto the tracks. The impact at high speed created a force of approximately 50,000 newtons, enough to launch the 400-kilogram animal into the air. The cow was propelled in an arc that tragically intersected with Sharma's filming position. Physics dictates that objects in motion remain in motion. The cow, now a biological projectile, traveled 30 meters through the air. Sharma had less than 2 seconds between the initial impact and his own fate. The footage shows his expression changing from concentration to horror as the bovine mass hurtled toward him. The collision was catastrophic. The cow struck Sharma directly, transferring most of its kinetic energy in an instant. The force shattered multiple ribs, which punctured his lungs and heart. His spine was severed at the 5th vertebra. Death was virtually instantaneous. His camera captured the entire sequence, including the moment of impact. Railway officials later calculated that the probability of such an accident, a cow being launched at precisely the right angle to strike someone standing where Sharma was, at less than 1 in 50 million. Ivan Lester McGuire. On April 2, 1988, experienced skydiving instructor Ivan McGuire prepared for what would be his 800th jump. At 35 years old, he was no stranger to the dangers of freefall. That day, McGuire was filming a student training jump for Franklin County Sport Parachute Center in North Carolina. Focused entirely on his video equipment, McGuire boarded the plane with his heavy VHS camera strapped to his helmet. The aircraft climbed to 10,500 feet. When it reached jump altitude, McGuire followed his student out the door without hesitation. The camera captured everything that followed. For the first few seconds, everything seemed normal. McGuire filmed the student performing maneuvers against the backdrop of Earth below. Then came a moment of horrific realization. His hands moved to his shoulders, frantically searching for parachute straps that weren't there. McGuire had forgotten to put on his parachute. The video showed his growing panic as he faced the unthinkable. He was falling 120 miles per hour with no way to slow down. His breathing became increasingly rapid as the ground approached. For 45 terrifying seconds, McGuire plummeted through open air, aware of his fate but completely powerless to change it. The camera recorded his final moments, including his desperate attempts to somehow save himself. The impact occurred in a field near Lewisburg. The force was instant and catastrophic, killing him immediately. When authorities recovered the camera, the footage revealed the full horror of his fatal mistake. The video became one of the most disturbing examples of a preventable death captured from the victim's perspective. Ruben Carbonell. On July 5, 2019, 24-year-old Spanish YouTuber Ruben Carbonell was determined to capture extreme footage for his growing adventure channel. He had built his online persona around dangerous stunts, seeking the adrenaline rush that attracted viewers. That night, under cover of darkness, he approached a cement factory in Alicante, Spain. At approximately 1:00 a.m., Carbonell scaled the fence surrounding the industrial complex. Security cameras captured him moving quickly toward his target, a 150-foot chimney towering above the facility. He carried a small backpack containing his base jumping parachute and a camera to document the illegal jump. Reaching the base of the chimney, Carbonell began to climb. The structure had no safety ladder, forcing him to use maintenance rungs attached to its side. For nearly 30 minutes, he ascended in the darkness, his movements increasingly precarious as he reached the top. At the summit, Carbonell set up his camera to capture the jump. He put on his parachute harness and stood at the edge. Without hesitation, he leaped into the darkness. What happened next was catastrophic. The parachute failed to deploy properly. Investigators later determined that either the pack was improperly prepared or the brief freefall didn't provide enough time for full deployment. Carbonell had no reserve chute. He plummeted the entire 150 feet without any deceleration. The impact was immediate and fatal, crushing his skull and shattering his spine. Factory workers discovered his body the next morning, the camera still attached to his helmet, having recorded his final moments in excruciating detail. Nishu Dewal. October 28, 2022. 22-year-old Nishu Dewal set up his phone on a tripod in a dusty field in Haryana, India. He had built a modest following on YouTube by performing increasingly dangerous vehicle stunts. That afternoon, he planned to attempt something no one on his channel had seen before, a wheelie on a 4-ton Mahindra tractor. Over 200 followers were watching his live stream as Dewal climbed into the driver's seat. The massive agricultural vehicle, designed for stability rather than stunts, sat menacingly in the afternoon sun. Its enormous rear tires stood nearly 6 feet tall, each weighing over 400 pounds. Dewal revved the diesel engine, causing black smoke to billow from the exhaust stack. "Watch this!" he shouted to his audience. He slammed the accelerator to the floor and yanked back on the steering wheel. The tractor's front end began to rise. The physics of what happened next were inevitable. As the machine tilted backward, its center of gravity shifted drastically. Unlike motorcycles, tractors have no safety mechanisms to prevent full inversion. At approximately 75 degrees, the vehicle passed its tipping point. The tractor flipped completely backward. Dewal had no time to jump clear. The roll bar crushed him instantly against the hard-packed earth. The massive weight of the machine, equivalent to 2 standard cars, compressed his chest cavity beyond what human physiology could withstand. His phone continued recording as horrified witnesses rushed to help, but there was nothing they could do. The pressure had caused catastrophic internal injuries, rupturing his heart and lungs immediately. Nishu Dewal was declared dead at the scene, his final moments broadcast live to his followers. Rogelio Adriano. On March 12, 2022, 27-year-old Filipino content creator Rogelio Adriano sat before his camera in Cananga Leyte. Known for extreme eating challenges, Adriano had been struggling to increase his subscriber count beyond 50,000. That day, he announced his most dangerous stunt yet, consuming an entire roasted chicken, bones and all, for 20,000 pesos or $400. The challenge had come from an anonymous viewer who promised to transfer the money once the video was posted. The Litson Manok sat on a plate before him, its skin glistening under the lights. Normally, Filipinos carefully eat around the bones, but Adriano had different plans. "I'll show you something no one has ever done," he told his audience. For the next 45 minutes, he methodically consumed the entire chicken, crushing smaller bones between his teeth and swallowing fragments. Larger bones were broken and consumed piece by piece. His viewers watched in horror and fascination as he completed the challenge. 2 days later, Adriano began experiencing severe abdominal pain. He ignored it initially, attributing it to normal digestion. By the 3rd day, the pain had become unbearable. His girlfriend rushed him to Eastern Visayas Regional Medical Center, where doctors performed emergency scans. The images revealed the horrific truth. Sharp bone fragments had perforated his intestinal walls in multiple places. Bacteria were leaking into his abdominal cavity, causing a massive infection. Despite immediate surgery, the sepsis had already spread too far. Adriano died on the operating table as surgeons attempted to repair the damage. The pathologist later found over 30 bone fragments throughout his digestive tract, some as sharp as needles. His death certificate listed the cause as intestinal perforation leading to septic shock, all for a challenge that the anonymous donor never paid. High on Life Trio. On July 3, 2018, 3 members of the popular YouTube adventure channel High on Life gathered at the top of Shannon Falls in British Columbia, Canada. Megan Scraper, 29, Alexi Lyak, 30, and Rickard Gamble, 30, had built their following of over 500,000 subscribers by documenting their travels to exotic and dangerous locations around the world. The trio was filming near the edge of the falls, where water cascaded down a series of pools before dropping 1,000 feet. The surface was slick with mist and algae. Scraper, standing closest to the edge, suddenly lost her footing on the slippery rock. She fell into one of the swift-moving pools just above the main drop. The current immediately grabbed her, pulling her toward the precipice. Without hesitation, Liak and Gamble jumped in after her, attempting to reach their friend before she was swept away. For a brief moment, witnesses saw the three struggling against the powerful flow, just 20 feet from where the water plunged into nothing. The force of the current was relentless. Calculated at 800 cubic feet per second, the water moved with enough power to prevent any chance of swimming against it. Within seconds, all three were pulled over the edge, plummeting nearly 100 meters down the sheer rock face. The impact was catastrophic. Each body struck multiple rock outcroppings during the fall, causing massive traumatic injuries before finally reaching the pool at the base. Search and rescue teams took 2 days to recover the bodies, which had been wedged beneath the churning water at the bottom of the falls. Autopsy reports indicated all three died from blunt force trauma combined with drowning. Their waterproof camera was recovered nearby, having captured the entire sequence up until the moment they went over the edge. Timothy Wilks. On February 5th, 2021, 20-year-old Timothy Wilks and a friend drove to the Urban Air Trampoline Park in Nashville, Tennessee. Wilks had recently started a YouTube channel focused on extreme pranks, hoping to capitalize on the viral potential of realistic stage scenarios. That evening, he planned to film what he called a fake robbery prank in the parking lot. At approximately 9:25 p.m., Wilks and his friend approached a group of people outside the facility. Both were wearing ski masks and carrying large butcher knives. They rushed toward the strangers aggressively, cameras hidden to capture reactions. What Wilks didn't account for was Tennessee's permissive self-defense laws. Among the targeted group was 23-year-old David Starnes Jr., who was legally carrying a concealed firearm. Seeing two masked men charging with knives, Starnes drew his knife. He fired 3 times in rapid succession, believing he was facing a genuine threat to his life. 2 bullets missed. The third struck Wilks directly in the chest, penetrating his heart and severing his aorta. Blood loss was immediate and catastrophic. Wilks collapsed to the pavement, the knife falling from his hand. His friend immediately broke character, screaming that it was just a prank, as he tried to stem the bleeding. Emergency services arrived within minutes, but the damage was irreversible. The bullet had caused a wound channel that medical professionals term non-survivable. Wilks was pronounced dead at the scene at 9:38 p.m., just 13 minutes after initiating his prank. Police later reviewed the footage from Wilks' camera, which had recorded the entire incident, including the split second when he realized the prank had gone catastrophically wrong. Starnes was not charged, as investigators determined he had acted in reasonable fear for his life. Agastay Chauhan. On May 5th, 2023, 25-year-old motorcycle enthusiast Agastay Chauhan prepared for what would be his final YouTube video. With over 1 million subscribers, his channel, Pro Rider 1000, had become known for extreme speed runs on Indian highways. That morning, he mounted his Kawasaki Ninjas X10R on the Greater Noida Expressway near Delhi. Chauhan had equipped his helmet with multiple cameras to capture the speedometer and his facial expression. His goal, announced to followers the previous day, was to hit 300 kilometers per hour. The bike was capable of such speeds, but the public highway was not designed for them. At 7:30 a.m., with minimal traffic, Chauhan began his run. His motorcycle accelerated rapidly, hitting 100 kilometers per hour in just 2.7 seconds. As he passed 250 kilometers per hour, slight vibrations began affecting the bike's stability. Still, he continued accelerating. At approximately 280 kilometers per hour, Chauhan encountered a minor imperfection in the road surface, a slight expansion joint that would be insignificant at legal speeds. At such extreme velocity, it was catastrophic. The front wheel momentarily lost contact with the asphalt, creating a speed wobble that engineers call tank slapping. The motorcycle veered violently toward a concrete divider. Chauhan had no time to react. The impact at such high speed created forces equivalent to hitting the ground from a 30-story building. His body was thrown 50 meters from the initial crash site. The carbon fiber helmet, designed to withstand impacts up to 180 kilometers per hour, shattered completely. Autopsy reports later confirmed that Chauhan died instantly from massive craniocerebral trauma. His cameras continued recording, documenting both the speedometer's final reading of 291 kilometers per hour and the horrific moment of impact in high definition. Brian Rickard. On October 23, 2013, 36-year-old Brian Rickard, known online as Yotslaya, decided to expand his content beyond gaming videos. With over 800,000 subscribers, the YouTuber had built his following through Grand Theft Auto and Borderlands gameplay. That night, along with 2 friends, Destin Blake and Kevin Hall, he attempted to film something far more dangerous than virtual stunts. At 2:30 a.m., after consuming alcohol at a local bar in Evansville, Indiana, Rickard drove his 1994 Honda Prelude to a railroad crossing. His plan was simple but deadly: race across the tracks just ahead of an oncoming train, capturing the near miss for his channel. The Norfolk Southern freight train was traveling at approximately 60 miles per hour. Rickard positioned a camera on the dashboard. The train's warning lights began flashing as the crossing gates descended. Instead of waiting, Rickard accelerated, attempting to beat the train through the crossing. He misjudged both his car's acceleration and the train's speed by mere seconds. The locomotive struck the Prelude directly on the driver's side at full speed. The impact generated forces equivalent to several thousand pounds of TNT. The car did not simply stop, it disintegrated. The vehicle was torn into unrecognizable fragments and dragged nearly 500 feet down the tracks. The collision was so violent that Rickard and his passengers died instantly. The human body cannot withstand such extreme deceleration forces. Autopsies later revealed multiple severed limbs, massive internal decapitation, and traumatic separation of internal organs, injuries consistent with high-velocity impacts. First responders described it as one of the worst accidents they had ever witnessed. The camera was found 200 feet from the initial impact point, its memory card still intact, having recorded the final moments before the collision, and the look of realization on Rickard's face when he knew it was too late. Died live on camera. Jean Pormenov, whose real name was Raphael Gravin, was a 46-year-old French content creator who built his reputation on extreme challenges and endurance streams. On March 17, 2025, he began what would become his final broadcast, a 10-day marathon live stream on Kick that promised viewers unprecedented access to his deteriorating mental and physical state. The stream was marketed as ultimate endurance entertainment. Pormenov was subjected to sleep deprivation, with viewers paying to keep him awake through loud noises played at random intervals. Each day, the challenges intensified. By day 5, he was visibly disoriented, slurring his words and experiencing microsleeps on camera. What viewers didn't know was that, behind the scenes, Pormenov had signed a contract requiring him to complete the full 10 days regardless of his condition. The production team continued pushing him, introducing humiliation segments where he was forced to consume substances later identified containing high levels of caffeine, amphetamine-like stimulants, and alcohol. On day 8, at approximately 2:13 a.m., Pormenov began showing signs of severe physical distress. His breathing became irregular. He complained of chest pain but was coerced to continue. The production team muted his microphone when he begged to stop. At 4:27 a.m., viewers watched as Pormenov suddenly clutched his chest. His body went rigid, then limp. For 17 minutes, he remained slumped in his gaming chair while the stream continued. No one on the production team entered the room. The camera captured his final, shallow breaths. Died of exhaustion. Li Hao was a 21-year-old computer science student in his final semester at Pingdingshan Vocational and Technical College in Henan Province, China. He had signed what the industry called a cooperation agreement with a media company that specialized in gaming content. The contract seemed simple on paper: stream for 240 hours across 26 days and produce 15 short videos monthly. What Li didn't anticipate was how the schedule would consume his life. The agreement calculated to over 9 hours of streaming daily, not including preparation time, editing videos, or his academic responsibilities. The media company paid him approximately 8,000 yuan, $1,200 monthly, just enough to help support his family in rural Henan. By November 2023, Li had adapted to an extreme schedule. His roommates later told investigators he would attend classes during the day, then begin streaming at 9 p.m. and continue until 6 a.m., catching only brief periods of sleep between lectures. His final week was particularly brutal, 5 consecutive night shifts without a break. On the morning of November 10th, Li's stream ended at 6:12 a.m. Viewers reported he appeared disoriented during the final hour, repeatedly losing focus during gameplay, and struggling to form complete sentences. He told his audience he felt strangely cold despite the heated dormitory. At 2:30 p.m., his roommate attempted to wake Li for an afternoon class. His body was cold to the touch. Despite shaking him vigorously, Li showed no response. Emergency services were called, but medics pronounced him dead at the scene. His body showed no external injuries. The autopsy revealed that Li had suffered a fatal cardiac arrhythmia, likely triggered by extreme exhaustion and prolonged sleep deprivation. His heart had simply stopped while he slept. Medical examiners found Li's body had entered a state of adrenal crisis after 5 consecutive days with less than 2 hours of sleep each. Alcohol overconsumption. Wang Mofeng, known to his followers as Brother 3000, was a 34-year-old influencer on China's Douyin platform. He had built a modest following of 170,000 fans by participating in eating and drinking challenges that pushed physical limits. On July 15, 2024, Wang joined a live PK challenge, a popular format where streamers compete against each other for viewer gifts and donations. The rules were simple but deadly. The creator who received fewer gifts during each round faced a punishment. That night, Wang repeatedly lost to his competitor. Each loss required him to consume a shot of baijiu, a clear Chinese spirit with alcohol content typically between 35 to 60%. The audience encouraged each drink with donations and comments. As the 3-hour stream progressed, Wang's speech became increasingly slurred. His face flushed deep red. By the stream's midpoint, he had already consumed 4 full bottles of baijiu, yet continued to accept more challenges. To prove to skeptical viewers that he wasn't drinking water, Wang struck matches and ignited the liquid, showing the blue flames characteristic of high-proof alcohol. During the final 30 minutes, Wang was barely coherent. He struggled to remain upright in his chair. The livestream ended at 11:42 p.m. with Wang waving goodbye to viewers while attempting to stand. He stumbled forward, knocking his camera over. The feed cut to black. 12 hours later, Wang's girlfriend entered his apartment after he failed to answer repeated calls. She found him face down on his living room floor, surrounded by empty baijiu bottles. There was evidence he had vomited while unconscious and subsequently asphyxiated. The medical examiner later determined his blood alcohol concentration was 0.58%, over 7 times the legal driving limit and well into the lethal range. An empty stomach and rapid consumption had accelerated the alcohol absorption. Wang had essentially poisoned himself for entertainment while thousands watched, donated, and encouraged his self-destruction. Charity stream tragedy. Brian Vigneault, who streamed under the name Poshy Brid, was a 35-year-old father of 3 and a respected figure in the World of Tanks community. On February 19, 2017, he began what was intended to be a 24-hour charity live stream to raise money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It was a format he had completed multiple times before, often pushing through extreme fatigue to entertain his audience while supporting causes he believed in. The stream began at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For the first 20 hours, everything appeared normal. Vigneault played match after match, pausing only for bathroom breaks and to thank donors. Viewers noticed he was drinking energy drinks and smoking cigarettes regularly to stay awake. By hour 21, his eyes were bloodshot, and his reactions in the game had noticeably slowed. After streaming for nearly 22 consecutive hours, Vigneault told his audience he was stepping away for a cigarette break. His voice was hoarse, and he seemed to struggle standing up from his chair. The camera continued rolling, showing his empty seat while viewers waited for his return. Minutes passed, then hours. Some viewers speculated he had fallen asleep off camera. Others joked that he had abandoned the charity stream. The truth was far more disturbing. At some point during his break, Vigneault collapsed in his Virginia Beach home. Medical examiners determined Vigneault had suffered cardiac arrest. The prolonged wakefulness, combined with caffeine, nicotine, and the stress of continuous performance, had triggered a fatal heart rhythm disturbance. His body was discovered still clutching an unlit cigarette. Overexhaustion. Na Dong-hyun, known to his million-plus subscribers as Great Library or BuzzBean11, was one of South Korea's most influential gaming streamers. The 36-year-old had been creating content since 2009, pioneering the Korean live streaming scene long before it became mainstream. On September 6, 2025, what had begun as routine exhaustion ended in tragedy at his Seoul apartment. In the days leading up to his death, Na's behavior on stream had grown increasingly erratic. During his final broadcast on September 4th, viewers watched as he repeatedly rubbed his temples and complained of severe headaches. "I haven't slept properly in 3 days," he told his audience while playing League of Legends. "My head feels like it's going to explode." For 5 hours, Na continued streaming despite visible discomfort. At several points, he briefly closed his eyes and swayed in his chair. Longtime viewers commented that he looked unusually pale. Midway through the stream, he abruptly stood up, clutching the side of his head, before sitting down again and apologizing. "Just dizzy," he explained. "It happens a lot lately." The stream ended at 2:17 a.m. when Na said he needed to lie down. Those would be the last words his audience ever heard from him. For the next 36 hours, his social media accounts remained silent. This wasn't unusual for Na, who often took breaks between streams without announcement. On the evening of September 6th, his ex-wife used her emergency key to enter his apartment after failing to reach him for a scheduled child custody exchange. She found Na on his bedroom floor. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but could only confirm what was already apparent. Na had been dead for at least 24 hours. The autopsy revealed a massive cerebral hemorrhage had occurred at the base of his brain. Medical examiners explained that Na likely felt increasing pressure and pain as blood slowly leaked into his cranial cavity. Eventually, the bleeding accelerated, causing rapid unconsciousness and death. His body showed signs of severe sleep deprivation, with stress hormones at levels typically seen only in patients with advanced exhaustion disorders. Mukbang Tragedy. Efekan Culture was a 24-year-old Turkish mukbang streamer who had amassed over 800,000 followers across multiple platforms. His content centered around consuming massive quantities of food while engaging with viewers in real time. What began as occasional eating challenges in 2022 quickly escalated as his popularity grew. By early 2025, Culture was regularly consuming between 10,000 and 15,000 calories in a single sitting, often multiple times per week. Viewers tuned in to watch as he devoured entire family-sized pizzas pizzas, buckets of fried chicken, and dozens of hamburgers in one sitting. The more he ate, the more his audience grew. The more his audience grew, the more extreme his consumption became. It was a cycle that would ultimately prove fatal. In December 2024, regular viewers began commenting on Culture's labored breathing during streams. Even while sitting still, he appeared to struggle for air. His face and extremities showed visible swelling, and during a New Year's Eve broadcast, he paused several times to catch his breath between bites. By February 2025, Culture's weight had reached an estimated 440 pounds, a dramatic increase from the 170 pounds he weighed when his channel began. On February 7th, during what would be his final live stream, Culture attempted to eat 5 large doner kebabs in under 30 minutes. 20 minutes into the challenge, he began sweating profusely and complained of chest pain. The stream abruptly ended. 3 days later, Turkish media reported that Culture had been hospitalized with severe respiratory distress and cardiac complications. His organs, overwhelmed by his rapid weight gain, were beginning to fail. Doctors placed him on a ventilator as his condition deteriorated. For the next 3 weeks, Culture remained in intensive care. His body, already pushed beyond its limits by years of extreme consumption, could not recover. On March 7, 2025, his heart stopped. Despite 47 minutes of resuscitation attempts, doctors could not revive him. The official cause of death was listed as cardiorespiratory failure secondary to morbid obesity and metabolic syndrome. Culture's family later revealed he had been diagnosed with early-stage heart failure months before his hospitalization, but had continued streaming to maintain his income. Selfie gone fatal. Irina Glazunova, a 24-year-old Russian influencer, had built her following on dance videos and lifestyle content that showcased her travels. On September 27, 2024, she was visiting Tbilisi, Georgia, a popular destination for content creators seeking exotic backdrops. After a night of club hopping in the city center, Glazunova decided her followers needed one more update. It was just after 3 a.m. when she began filming herself singing while walking through the dimly lit metro station near Freedom Square. The Tbilisi subway system is known for its deep stations and long, steep escalators. Glazunova, looking into her phone's front camera rather than at her surroundings, approached what appeared to be a regular staircase. Her phone captured her smiling face, completely unaware of the danger ahead. What she mistook for a standard stairwell was actually an emergency maintenance access point with a straight vertical drop of 40 feet to the tracks below. In the video, recovered later from her damaged phone, Glazunova can be seen mid-sentence when her expression suddenly changes. There's a moment of realization as her eyes widen. The camera becomes chaotic, spinning wildly as she loses her footing. Witnesses reported hearing a scream cut abruptly short. The phone continued recording as it fell alongside her. Medical examiners later determined that Glazunova did not die immediately from the impact. The fall caused multiple fractures to her skull and spine, but she remained conscious for nearly 2 minutes. Security footage showed her attempting to move, dragging herself a few inches while bleeding heavily from head wounds. The phone landing nearby continued filming, capturing her final moments as she struggled to breathe, her lungs filling with blood from internal injuries. Emergency services were alerted by a station cleaner who discovered her body 30 minutes later, but by then, Irina Glazunova had already died from a combination of blood loss and traumatic brain injury. Her last video, never intended to be published, was later shared by hackers who accessed her cloud storage. Died while chasing bridge-top content. Lewis Stevenson, a 26-year-old British influencer with over 500,000 followers, built his brand on increasingly dangerous stunts. His content featured urban exploration and climbing tall structures without safety equipment. By October 2023, he was struggling to maintain viewer interest. His engagement numbers were dropping. He needed something spectacular. The Castilla-La Mancha Bridge in central Spain offered exactly what Stevenson was looking for. Standing 160 feet above the Tagus River, its dramatic arches and remote location made it perfect for viral content. Stevenson arrived at dawn on October 15th, carrying only his phone and a small stabilizer for filming. No harness, no safety line, no spotters. Stevenson's final video showed him smiling as he climbed over the safety barrier and began scaling the outside of the bridge's support structure. "This is going to break the internet," he told his viewers as he inched along a narrow beam. The winds that day were gusting at 25 miles per hour. Weather reports later confirmed unusual turbulence in the valley. 8 minutes into the live stream, Stevenson reached for a handhold that was slick with morning dew. His fingers slipped. The phone captured his face, transitioning from confidence to sudden terror. He made a desperate grab for the beam but missed by inches. The livestream continued as he plummeted. Forensic analysis of the video revealed Stevenson remained conscious throughout the fall. His screams were clear and continuous for the entire 3-second drop. He was aware of what was happening. The phone, still gripped tightly, recorded his facial expressions changing from shock to resignation in those final moments. When his body struck the rocky riverbank, the impact shattered virtually every bone. Investigators noted he didn't die instantly. The autopsy revealed Stevenson's heart continued beating for approximately 40 seconds after impact. He was unable to move, but fully aware as his internal organs failed one by one. Blood filled his lungs. His brain, protected briefly by his skull, registered pain signals until finally shutting down. Died after Trendy cosmetic procedure. Junior Dutra, whose legal name was Adair Mendez Dutra Jr., had amassed over 2 million followers across multiple platforms showcasing his luxurious lifestyle in Sao Paulo, Brazil. At 31, he was known for constantly transforming his appearance through cosmetic procedures, documenting each enhancement for his audience. In May 2024, Dutra announced he would undergo the trending fox eyes procedure, a technique that uses specialized threads to pull the outer corners of the eyes upward for an elongated almond shape. The procedure itself was relatively quick, taking less than an hour at an upscale clinic in central Sao Paulo. Dutra livestreamed late portions of the pre-operation consultation, joking with followers about becoming even more perfect. He chose a surgeon who offered a discount in exchange for promotion on his accounts. Investigation would later reveal this doctor had been practicing for less than 2 years. The first signs of trouble appeared within hours. Dutra posted images showing unusual redness and swelling around his temples. "Worth the pain for beauty," he captioned, dismissing concerned comments. By the next morning, the swelling had increased dramatically. His right eye was completely shut, and a distinct yellow discharge had begun seeping from the incision points. Medical records showed Dutra visited an emergency room 48 hours after the procedure with a temperature of 103 degrees. Doctors immediately identified a severe infection spreading along the thread pathways. The bacteria had already penetrated deep tissue and was advancing toward his brain. Antibiotics were administered intravenously, but the infection had established itself too firmly. On day 4, Dutra began experiencing neurological symptoms. His speech slurred, and he lost feeling on the right side of his face. His final social media update, a shaky video filmed from his hospital bed, showed him struggling to form words. "Something's wrong," he managed to say before the video cut off. By the 5th day, the infection reached his meninges, the protective membrane surrounding his brain. His body temperature spiked to 105 degrees. Seizures began, each one more violent than the last. Despite aggressive medical intervention, including surgical drainage and maximum dose antibiotics, Junior Dutra's organs began shutting down one by one. Septic shock claimed his life exactly 1 week after the procedure that was meant to boost his views. The live-streamed flight gone wrong. Tang Feiji had spent 3 years building his following on Chinese social platforms by attempting increasingly daring stunts. At 29, he had already jumped from bridges and raced motorcycles without licenses or training. By March 2024, Tang needed something more extreme to maintain his 2 million followers. He purchased a twin-rotor ultralight aircraft online for approximately $15,000. The machine arrived partially assembled with minimal instructions. Tang documented his assembly process over 2 weeks, frequently consulting YouTube videos rather than aviation experts. When followers pointed out safety concerns in the comments, Tang brushed them off. "Regulations are for cowards," he replied. "Real content requires real risks." On March 18th, Tang set up 3 phone cameras at a remote airstrip in James County. One mounted inside the cockpit, one on the aircraft's exterior, and one on a tripod to capture the takeoff. His livestream began with Tang excitedly showing viewers the aircraft. "Today we fly without permission," he announced. "No license needed for this beauty." Aviation experts later noted Tang made numerous critical errors during pre-flight checks. He failed to properly secure the fuel line. The weight distribution was dangerously imbalanced. Most crucially, he had modified the engine to deliver more power than the frame was designed to handle. The takeoff initially seemed successful. Tang climbed to approximately 400 feet, narrating excitedly to his audience. 7 minutes into the flight, a loud metallic snap was heard on the audio feed. The aircraft shuddered violently. Tang's expression changed from excitement to panic as he realized something was seriously wrong. The right rotor had fractured under stress. The imbalance sent the aircraft into an uncontrollable spin. Viewers watched in real time as Tang frantically tried to regain control. "It's breaking apart!" he screamed. The camera captured his terror as the ground rushed toward him. The impact wasn't immediately fatal. The cockpit camera continued streaming as flames erupted from the ruptured fuel line. Tang was conscious, trapped in the twisted metal. He could be heard coughing and crying for help as smoke filled the cabin. His viewers watched helplessly as the flames intensified. For nearly 3 minutes, Tang remained alive in the burning wreckage, his screams gradually weakening until they stopped altogether. The crane selfie falls 160 feet. Xiao Qumei, a 23-year-old crane operator from Quzhou, China, had built a following of over 100,000 fans on Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok. Her content typically featured her workday high above industrial sites, often dancing or performing stunts at dizzying heights. Her followers praised her fearlessness, each video earning her more attention and revenue from the platform. On July 20th, 2021, Chau decided to film a special sunset video from the top of the tower crane where she worked. The weather reports that day noted unusual wind conditions, with gusts reaching 30 miles per hour at higher elevations. Despite this, Chau climbed to the uppermost section of the crane, approximately 160 feet above the ground. The livestream began normally, with Chau speaking to her audience while adjusting her phone on a makeshift stand. She was not wearing any safety harness, despite regulations requiring one for all personnel working above 40 feet. Today's view will break records, she told her viewers as she positioned herself at the edge of the crane's arm for the optimal backdrop. 7 minutes into the stream, a sudden gust of wind can be heard. The phone captured Chau, momentarily losing her balance, her arms windmilling as she fought to regain stability. For a brief second, it appeared she had recovered, but then her foot slipped on the metal surface made slick by evening condensation. The phone continued streaming as Chau fell. The camera captured her face transformed by terror, her mouth open in a scream that couldn't be heard over the wind. Viewers watched in real time as she plummeted, the ground rushing toward her at increasing speed. Forensic experts who analyzed the footage noted that Chau remained conscious throughout the entire fall, which lasted approximately 3 seconds. Her eyes remained open, her arms flailing in instinctive but futile attempts to grab onto something, anything, to stop her descent. The impact was not recorded directly, but the phone, which fell moments after her, continued live streaming from where it landed nearby. The audio captured the sickening sound of her body striking the concrete below. Medical examiners later determined that while the initial impact shattered her spine and pelvis, Chau's heart continued beating for nearly 2 minutes afterward. She was fully aware but completely paralyzed, unable to move or call for help as internal bleeding gradually shut down her vital organs. Accidental shoot. Abdulrahman had accumulated over 500,000 followers on TikTok by staging elaborate pranks and skits in public places around Lahore, Pakistan. At 27, he was known for pushing boundaries to generate views. His content frequently featured prop weapons to create dramatic reactions from unsuspecting bystanders. On January 12, 2025, Rahman planned to film a mock robbery scene at Narkali Bazaar, one of Lahore's busiest markets. To make the video more authentic, he brought a real gun rather than a toy one. Friends later revealed he had purchased it illegally 2 weeks earlier, specifically for creating more realistic content. Rahman arrived at the market around noon, accompanied by 2 friends who had filmed from different angles. He concealed the gun under his jacket until he was ready to start filming. Market security footage shows Rahman instructing his friends on camera positions, unaware that the gun's safety mechanism was disengaged. As Rahman prepared for the first take, he pulled the gun from his jacket. Witnesses reported he was adjusting the phone in his left hand while gesturing dramatically with the gun in his right. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. The gun discharged accidentally, the gun fruit hitting Rahman directly in the chest from less than a foot away. The ballistic analysis later confirmed the bullet penetrated between his ribs and tore through his right atrium, one of the heart's main chambers. The video captured Rahman's expression transitioning instantly from excitement to confusion. He looked down at his chest, where blood had already begun spreading across his white shirt. "I think something's wrong," he said, his voice surprisingly calm before collapsing to the ground. Bystanders rushed to help, but the damage was catastrophic. Blood filled his chest cavity, compressing his lungs and preventing oxygen from reaching his brain. Medical experts who reviewed the footage noted that Rahman remained conscious for approximately 40 seconds after being shot. His eyes stayed open, blinking rapidly as his brain registered what was happening. His lips moved in what appeared to be a prayer. Within 2 minutes of the gun discharging, Abdulrahman had lost enough blood that his organs began shutting down. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Reservoir stunt backfires. Diego Caua Oliveira Santos, a 19-year-old Brazilian influencer with 300,000 followers, specialized in outdoor adventure content. His videos typically featured him performing stunts in natural settings, jumping from cliffs, scaling waterfalls, and exploring dangerous terrain. On August 3, 2024, he promised followers the most extreme stunt yet at Furnace Reservoir in Minas Gerais state. The reservoir was known locally for its dangerous currents and unpredictable water levels. Multiple drownings had occurred there in previous years, leading authorities to place warning signs throughout the area. Santos deliberately ignored these warnings, filming himself, removing a no swimming sign before setting up his equipment. The livestream began at 2 p.m. with Santos explaining his plan to perform a backflip from a rocky outcrop into the reservoir, then swim across a narrow channel. "This will be my most viral video ever," he told viewers as he positioned himself near the edge. 3 friends accompanied him, filming from different angles. Santos was unaware that recent rainfall had altered the reservoir's current patterns. What appeared to be calm water concealed a powerful undertow that local fishermen had warned about just days earlier. As Santos prepared for his stunt, he moved closer to the edge of the outcropping, about 15 feet above the water. The moment that changed, everything happened without warning. The rock beneath his right foot crumbled unexpectedly. Santos, mid-sentence in his explanation to viewers, suddenly lost balance. There was no dramatic scream, just a look of surprise as he pitched sideways into the water below. The splash seemed unremarkable at first. Santos surfaced moments later, laughing and waving to the camera. "That wasn't supposed to happen yet," he shouted. But as he attempted to swim back to shore, viewers could see his expression change from amusement to concern. The current had already begun pulling him away from the rocks. Santos' friends initially thought he was exaggerating his struggle for dramatic effect. But within 30 seconds, it became clear he was in genuine distress. The livestream continued as he fought against the invisible force dragging him toward the center of the reservoir. "I can't," he gasped before going under briefly. When he resurfaced, panic had overtaken his features. One friend jumped in to attempt a rescue, but was quickly forced back by the same powerful current. Santos managed to stay above water for nearly 2 minutes, each movement becoming visibly weaker than the last. His final words, barely audible over the water, were, "I can't breathe." The camera captured his last desperate reach toward the sky before the reservoir claimed him completely. Technoblade. On June 30th, 2022, a video titled "So Long Nerds" appeared on the Technoblade YouTube channel. Alexander, known to over 10 million subscribers as Technoblade, was a Minecraft player renowned for his strategic gameplay and dry humor. The video, narrated by his father, revealed that Alexander had died at 23 after an 8-month battle with stage 4 sarcoma. The cancer had first manifested as pain in his right arm in July 2021. Initially dismissed as repetitive stress from gaming, the discomfort persisted until a medical scan revealed a malignant tumor. By the time of diagnosis, the cancer had already metastasized throughout his body. Aggressive chemotherapy followed, but the sarcoma continued spreading to his lungs and bones. Edd Gould. In March 2012, the animation community lost one of its pioneering voices when Edd Gould died at just 23 years old. The creator of Edd's World had built a massive following with his quirky, colorful cartoons that blended humor with autobiographical elements. What many of his fans didn't realize was that behind the cheerful animations, Edd had been fighting leukemia for 6 years. The blood cancer had progressed slowly at first, allowing him to continue creating between treatments. Even as his condition worsened, Edd refused to step away from his work. His friends reported that he would joke about his illness, turning pain into comedy even as his body weakened. On March 25th, surrounded by friends and family, Edd Gould drew his final breath. Christina Grimmie. On June 10th, 2016, 22-year-old singer and YouTuber Christina Grimmie had just finished performing at the Plaza Live in Orlando, Florida. Known for her powerful vocals and covers that had earned her millions of subscribers, Christina always made time to meet fans after shows. That night, she sat at a merchandise table, signing autographs and taking photos with a line of admirers. At approximately 10:24 p.m., a 27-year-old man named Kevin James Loibel approached the table. Loibel pulled out a 9mm handgun and fired. Her brother Marcus immediately tackled the shooter, but Loibel broke free just long enough to turn the gun on himself, firing a single fatal shot. Chaos erupted as fans scattered. Christina lay bleeding on the venue floor, still breathing but unconscious. Paramedics rushed her to Orlando Regional Medical Center, where doctors fought to stabilize her, but the damage was catastrophic. Christina Grimmie was pronounced dead. Angry Grandpa. On December 10th, 2017, Charles Marvin Green Jr., known to millions as the explosive Angry Grandpa, took his final labored breath. The 67-year-old YouTube sensation had built a following of over 3.4 million subscribers with his volatile reactions and destructive outbursts. What many viewers didn't see was his years-long battle with multiple health issues. That Sunday morning, Green was surrounded by his children in his North Charleston home. The man whose temper seemed unstoppable had been silenced not by choice, but by the body he had neglected. Total Biscuit. On May 24, 2018, John Bain, known online as Total Biscuit, lost his final battle against cancer. The 33-year-old British gaming critic had built his reputation on unflinching honesty and consumer advocacy. In April 2014, Bain announced his diagnosis of bowel cancer. Initially given hope, the disease had already silently spread. By October 2015, doctors discovered metastatic lesions in his liver. The cancer was now stage 4, considered terminal. Still, Bain continued creating content, documenting his treatments with characteristic frankness. His body body weakened as chemotherapy ravaged his immune system. The cancer continued its methodical invasion, spreading to his spine and ribs. In early 2018, Bain revealed that chemotherapy was no longer effective. His liver function deteriorated rapidly, causing jaundice and extreme fatigue. As toxins, his failing liver couldn't filter reached his brain. His wife Jenna stayed beside him as his breathing became irregular. John Bain's fight ended. The voice that had demanded better from the gaming industry fell silent, leaving only echoes across the platforms he once critiqued. Grant Thompson. On July 29, 2019, Grant Thompson took his paramotor into the skies above Hurricane, Utah. The 38-year-old creator of the King of Random YouTube channel, with over 12 million subscribers, had only recently developed a passion for paramotoring, essentially parachuting, with a motor-driven propeller strapped to your back. When darkness fell and he hadn't returned, his wife called authorities. His phone's GPS coordinates led search teams to a remote area near Sand Hollow State Park. Rescuers spotted wreckage from the air. Thompson's paramotor had crashed into the side of a rocky hill. Investigators found that Thompson had collided with the terrain at high speed, likely after experiencing a sudden equipment malfunction or unexpected wind condition. His body was recovered as dawn broke over the desert landscape he'd been admiring just hours before. Josh Neuman. Aboard was 22-year-old Josh Neuman, a filmmaker and professional skateboarder known for his breathtaking downhill skateboarding videos that had earned him over 1.2 million subscribers. Neuman was in Iceland shooting promotional content when he boarded the sightseeing flight alongside pilot Haraldur Diego and 2 other passengers. When the aircraft failed to return, Icelandic Coast Guard launched search operations immediately. Divers confirmed the plane had hit the water at high speed, disintegrating upon impact. Caleb Logan Bratayley. On October 1, 2015, 13-year-old Caleb Logan collapsed suddenly in his family home in Maryland. Known to millions of viewers as the charming, witty son on the Bratayley YouTube channel, Caleb had spent nearly half his life in front of cameras that documented his family's everyday moments. What the cameras never captured, what no one could see, was the silent killer developing within his chest. Medical examiners would later determine that Caleb suffered from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition where the heart muscle thickens abnormally. The disease shows no external symptoms in many cases, leaving those affected completely unaware of the danger. Desert drifter. Andrew's passenger car was stopped at a red light when he was rear-ended by a white van traveling at a high rate of speed. First responders found him unconscious, but breathing, trapped in the crushed metal frame. Doctors discovered severe hemorrhaging across his brain. The impact had caused his brain to violently strike the inside of his skull, tearing blood vessels and causing critical swelling. Cross remained on ventilator support as his brain activity steadily declined. Multiple EEG tests showed minimal electrical activity. On March 4th, with Cross showing no signs of neurological recovery, his family made the decision to withdraw life support. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.